A consumer group claims that the mean minimum time it takes for a sedan to travel a quarter mile is greater than 14.7 seconds. A random sample of 22 sedans has a mean minimum time to travel a quarter mile of 15.4 seconds and a standard deviation of 2.10 seconds. At alpha equals 0.10, do you have enough evidence to support the consumer group's claim? Part A. Identify the claim and state the null and alternative hypothesis. For this part, let's highlight the claim. The claim is that the mean minimum time it takes for a sedan to travel a quarter mile is greater than 14.7 seconds. How would we write this in mathematical terms? We're talking about the mean, so this would be a mu, and it says greater than 14.7 seconds. Notice that this does not have the equal sign in it. Therefore, this would be the alternative hypothesis. The null hypothesis would be the complement, and that would be less than or equal to 14.7. Part B, use technology to find the p-value. For this part, we're going to use Google Spreadsheets. Here I've opened up Google Sheets, and I've went ahead and filled out some entries just so that we can have some good labels. We have the sample mean, the sample standard deviation, the sample size, the hypothesized mean, the test statistic that we're going to calculate in order that we can calculate the p-value. So let's fill in our entries for these first four categories, the sample mean through the hypothesized mean. Okay, so I've got my cells filled in. Now let's look at calculating the test statistic, because in order to calculate the p-value, we have to calculate that test statistic, and that's going to be the same as the t equals x bar minus mu divided by the standard deviation divided by the square root of n. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in my equal sign. Now the numerator I'm going to enclose in parentheses. We want to take x bar, which is the sample mean, minus the hypothesized mean, or mu. We're going to enclose that in parentheses. Then we're going to divide it by, again, since the denominator it includes a division sign, we're going to include that in parentheses. The standard deviation divided by the square root, and for the square root we would write SQRT, and then the sample size. Okay, so I find that my t-test statistic, or my standardized test statistic, is 1.56. Now let's calculate the p-value. We're going to use t-distribution, the function. So we're going to have equals, start typing in t-dis, and you can see the t-distribution, which is the student's t-distribution. Click on that. Now it tells you what you need to enter. X is going to be the test statistic, so we'll click on the test statistic for that first one. The degrees of freedom is n minus 1, or your sample size minus 1. So you could click in this minus 1 for your degrees of freedom, or you could just simply type in 21, whichever you prefer. The number of tails, okay, so this is where you would look at your alternative hypothesis. Your alternative hypothesis included a greater than sign, which means this is a one-tailed test. If it was a not equal to sign, that would be your two-tailed test. Then press enter. And here you can see that your p-value is 0.0664. So again, we said that our p-value was 0.0664. Part C. Decide whether to reject or fail to reject the null hypothesis. So over here I have the decision rule based on p-value. So let's see which one of these it satisfies. Our p-value was 0.0664. And alpha is 0.10. So what sign could we put between those two numbers? We can say that our alpha is bigger. So that would satisfy the first condition. We would reject the null hypothesis. So how do we interpret this decision to reject our null hypothesis in words or in context of the original claim? So the question is, do you have enough evidence to support the consumer group's claim? Remember that the alternative hypothesis was the group's claim. So since we're rejecting the null hypothesis, we're saying that the alternative hypothesis is true. And that was the claim. Therefore, in context of the original claim or in context of the question that this problem is asking, we could say, there is enough evidence at the 10% level of significance to support the consumer group's claim that the mean minimum time it takes for a sedan to travel a quarter mile is greater than 14.7 seconds.